You're listening to Rebel Hearts Rising, where we believe your darkest hour holds the key to awakening depth and profound inner wisdom. I'm Tam Burke, and I created this to remind you that when your heart wants to shut down, that's your call to rise, like a phoenix from the ashes. What makes this unique is that every episode is paired with a guided meditation to help awaken your intuition and heal on deeper layers. Together, we'll turn pain into power. Getting canceled is one of the best things that happens to me. I know that sounds crazy, and if you would have told me that while I was going through it, I probably would have wanted to punch you in the face, because it challenged me more than what I knew to be capable at the time. It really destroyed my confidence and had me sitting and wondering if I really was all of these things that people said about me. But the reason why it became so powerful is because through this process, I stopped being afraid of myself. At least I became less afraid. And that's one of the most powerful things that we can do. Because if our confidence is conditional, if we're always focused on what other people think about us, if we only allow ourselves to have feelings when we achieve something or we've done something or we're receiving accolades, then we only feel good about ourselves when X, when Y. And so getting canceled helped me be in one of the darkest places of my life and realize my own worth. It helped me take radical self-responsibility around the things that I had contributed to that experience. And that's the thing that happens when you get canceled. It's really easy to blame other people, to immediately deflect what people are saying about you and make it more about the people that are canceling you, which of course I wanted to do. That doesn't everybody's ego. But it was actually in the self-responsibility that radical power was created, that deep confidence arrived. And it would be easy for me to sit here and talk about my drama and talk about the story and the ways that I was wronged. But when we sit in our power, we realize that control comes from inside, because we can only control our side of the street. We can only clean up our own messes. And so from this place of deciding to look within, and it was hard. It was hard to look at the ways that I had contributed. It was hard to be brutally honest with myself and sit in how I had more than co-created the experience that I was having. But I find that also is what a lot of us are missing. We can tend to be really delicate, maybe even fragile around our perceptions of ourselves. And that again is always going to create this kind of push-pull. Because if I'm reliant on what other people think about me, I'm going to spend my whole life trying to please other people. And in this episode today, we're going to talk a lot about betrayal and people-pleasing, but how the act of radical self-responsibility is the antidote. And it would be very easy to say that I was pissed. Of course I was in the interim. But I actually realized that the people who canceled me were my greatest teachers. They were part of the initiation. Because after being canceled, after feeling like I was dragged through the mud, I had this epiphany, and I realized that I had been hiding in so many ways. And it gave me the courage to say, you know what? F it. If I'm already having this experience, which was probably one of my top fears, then why am I still playing small? Why am I still hiding myself and the intuitive gifts that I have and the ways that I work with clients if I already got dragged through the mud? And so it did take a while to get here, let's be real, right? But it liberated me. And it made me realize that we're not meant to be liked by everyone. And in fact, that idea is really dangerous. Because if you are liked by everyone, are you really liked by yourself? I'm not going to share from the lens of my own wounds. I spent years more focused on if other people liked me than if I even liked them. I spent years ignoring red flags from people and instead chasing them to want to be my friend or to want to like me. I actually took red flags as a sign of be here. My own helper syndrome, wanting to help other people, was really the causation of a lot of this. And it's freaking humbling to admit that. And something that I've seen a lot in myself and in my clients is when we have a helper syndrome, when we want to help people, a lot of that comes from our own inner child experience. Around the times that we needed help, that maybe our key caregivers weren't there to support us, and we so desperately wanted to be helped or to be saved. And because we put that power outside of us, we projected that on other people. When we get to a place that we have tools and we have the ability to help other people, that desire comes from our big heart. But the problem with that is that we can only really help ourselves. And from a place of embodiment, from a place of modeling our own experiences, being focused within, are we actually able to help other people? It's very much like a Chinese finger trap. The more you pull, the more you try to help others, the more stuck that you become. And so one of the biggest things that I contributed to in being canceled was that I played too many roles for a lot of people. I was offering healing services like intuitive sessions, coaching, and breath work for people who also worked on my team as contractors. And let's face it, it doesn't matter how great your boss is. Bosses suck, right? Aspects of them for sure. Authority is something that we always rub up against. And we find that we have more trouble with authority in sneaky ways when we give our power to that authority. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is about coming back to our own power and being able to love all parts of ourselves. Because what happens when we get canceled or we get feedback from someone or a friend even lovingly tries to share with us an experience that they have with us, for most of us, our immediate reaction is, nope, not me. Nope, that's not true. That must be your experience. And of course, there are two truths in every situation. And so everything that everyone says is a reflection of them, not of you. But if you're willing to use your intuition, to hear the news through the noise, you have an ability to create a more embodied, more confident version of yourself. Because it's easy to love the things that are shiny, right? I always talk about the external resume. People love all the things about us that are easy to love, or that they even desire. But it is the, in air quotes, bad, or seemingly challenging parts of ourselves that we're afraid to show others. And that when others reflect back to us, we really shut down because we're afraid of being wrong. We're afraid of being unlovable. And what this experience created for me, and what I really want to gift to you, is the understanding that all parts of us deserve love. And when you love those things about you that are negative or bad, that's really what gives you power. And I'm not saying that that doesn't mean that there needs to be inner work around letting some of those things evolve. But so much of what I've seen in my own experience with my friends and my clients is that when we shame parts of ourselves, when we think that we are bad or wrong, we actually only inflate that piece. And then we're white-knuckling our way through our healing, trying to heal or use spirituality as a mechanism to be better. When really the work is actually about loving ourselves just as we are all along. And so one of the things that I want to explore today is the idea of two truths. I cannot tell you, myself included, how many of my clients and friends have childhood experiences where their parents didn't give them what they need. And so then what happens is We move into higher levels of consciousness and our own healing when we can work with multiple truths. I'm really lucky because my parents and I have done a lot of work on healing the way that we communicate to one another. And so when I talk to my mom, I can both talk about the trauma that she created for me in my child experience, and also recognize that she was doing the best that she could at that time. And those are really two oppositional truths, right? And I find that we get in trouble and we aren't able to host collaborative relationships with other people when we want to make them wrong for our hurts. And it would be easy to make my mom wrong. But instead, when we get to look at wholeness, and even within ourselves, all of the ways that I contributed to my own canceling, none of it was out of malice. I was doing the best that I could. I was leaning into my ability I was doing the best that I could. I think all of us are. And our best is different from day to day. And so we create a lot of confidence and inner love when we recognize that we're not looking for perfection in ourselves and other people. When we can both hold boundaries and standards of what we need and how we want to be treated. And also recognize, y'all, it's a lot to be a human in life these days. Side tangent. I cannot apologize anymore or have people apologize to me for not responding to texts. Y'all, I would love, we do have notification counts on our phone. It's too much. And now there are multiple apps that we're communicating, right? Like email and text and Instagram and whatever social media apps that you're using. There's all of these constant pings on our attention. And we're evolving. We're going through unprecedented times. Not even considering the epidemic, the pandemic that we just went through. Collectively, we're healing and we're changing and we're shifting. And I think that we could just use a lot more patience with one another on what we're experiencing, a lot more heartfelt conversations on what's really happening for us. I think that's one of the things that hurt me the most in being canceled is part of who led this was a woman that I had been really close with, who I'd called a close friend. And some of the things that she said, I didn't know. We had never had a conversation about. And so, what about leaning into our vulnerability, having open conversations, being attuned to all of our own experiences, and taking responsibility for that, and allowing another truth to exist? And do you feel the energy behind that? Do you feel how it goes from holding on to the fragility of who we think we are and the way people have wronged us, and moving into kind of this open-palmed understanding? And so I encourage you to really be able to hold multiple truths at once. And the meditation that we're going to pair with this today is super cool because we're really going to talk a lot about all parts of us and that we have many parts. And I find that we are most empowered, most embodied, fully awakened, fully alive, cannot be defeated when we're willing to fold in all pieces of ourselves. When we don't need to be, I don't really like using the term good and bad because it's so singular, but for the ease of just labeling these conventions, I'll use the terms good and bad, right? And I almost actually like that in some capacities because it's so black and white. And that's not actually how we are as people. And so really leaning into understanding ourselves and the very deep complexities of what's happening in our society, what's happening for us, and leaving space for us to evolve without making other people wrong for it. And that action, that creates power within you. that reclaims all of your power and moves you out of being a victim into everything conspiring in your favor to bring the highest and brightest version of you online. I'm wondering how many of you had an experience in childhood where you received more love for being the good girl, when you helped your family out and you received praise, when you got good grades and that meant you were a good girl too. And how many of us learned that by being low maintenance, we were actually going to receive more love, by being easy, by being palatable. And then we evolve that into adulthood, and we start to diminish ourselves. We take our range and we make it smaller and smaller and smaller until only part of us fits into that. And from that place, we start to only honor a portion of ourselves. And that's where we really start to hurt our intuition. Because when we want to say no and we say yes, we turn down the volume on our own inner wisdom and the intuitive nudges that are always guiding us. How often does someone ask you something and you just want to say no? And your good girl comes online and it's like, yeah, no problem. Anything else? It's like, what the And so one of the things that I've started to do in my life and I offer to my clients too is first just pause. Just say, let me think about it. Because what we're talking about is flexing muscles, new muscles that you're creating, and simply just creating enough space for yourself to say, let me think about it, starts to honor the relationship between you and your intuition. Something else that's super important in intuition is noticing what energy expands us and contracts us. When we're around certain people, do we feel expanded and full and vibrant? Or do we feel like we need to interact in this small parameter to have a successful relationship with them? And of course, we're always going to have layered relationships, right? Work colleagues and closer friends and family, and there's going to be a range of us within that. But even still, paying attention to our body. A lot of us spend so much time in our head, right? We're avoiding trying to be wrong. We're afraid of ourselves. And if you walk away with one thing from today, I want you to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? And what might be different if you started listening to the guidance within? Because another thing that I learned through this, the more authentic you are, there will be a smaller group of people for you. Because we're not meant to be liked by everyone. That's a fawn response. And the more that you find that you don't have anybody that doesn't like you, I want you to lean in and ask if you're really being authentic with all of yourself. If you're afraid of what it might mean not to be liked by others. I know that I'm there. I'm still there, y'all. I toured this podcast space months ago. I hired an editor months ago. And they're like, hey, are you coming? And I was like, yeah, I'm coming. And at night, I would lay abed, eyes wide open, wondering like, oh my God, I'm putting myself out there again. What if I get canceled again? What if I have haters in the comments on YouTube? And then I come back and remind myself, when I turn inward and I make sure that my priority is me liking me above everything else, and not in a narcissistic way and not taking other people's thoughts and perspectives into account, but truly sitting with, do I love me? Then other people's reflections of us don't matter. And y'all, I'm telling you all of this. I had to re-record the first episode that I made because when I started, I'm in front of all of these cameras here and a mic. I started and I was freaking panting like a dog. I was just talking so fast and I hadn't taken a breath. And then as I was talking, I realized like, holy shit, I really need to take a breath. And this mic is here. And part of the first work that we do is we have to know it. We have to get our brain on board. We have to conceptualize what's happening and understand our lessons. But how often do we get it, but we don't get it? And so embodiment is about moving it from your head into your body. So much of the benefit that my clients get in my world is the way that I've worked on regulating my nervous system. So that even now, when I talk about being canceled or afraid of what other people think of us or talking about my psychic gifts, that my nervous system is regulated, that my energetic body is on board. Do you know what harmonic resonance is? It's why clocks sync up in a clock shop. And it's why girls get their moon at the same time when they spend a lot of time together. And so there are energetic currencies that are happening beyond what we understand. And so when we are with someone who doesn't just get their lessons, but they feel it deeply, they've literally moved the energy from the thinking kind of grasping into the feeling sense of their body, we get to get on board with that too. So today, simply just by listening and being present with the conversation that we're having, we're doing energetic work to change your nervous system around how we feel about ourselves. Because that's really the root of what we're talking here. I think two kind of things happen when you get canceled, or even if you're faced with opinions of other people. The first of which is that if you're a people pleaser, anything that anyone says is going to bite you, right? Like, I clearly have blue eyes. And previously, if someone was like, her brown eyes, blah, 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 I would be like, oh my God, my brown eyes. It's like, Tamara, no, obviously not. But when we're a people pleaser, we're so hypersensitive to judgment because we've learned our own survival mechanisms around pleasing other people. And we're going to talk about hypervigilance in the next episode. I'm super excited to tell you about how that relates to your intuitive capacities and why it's a superpower. But that wound of wanting to make everyone like us, even if we don't like them, that's going to mean that anything hurts our feelings. Oh my gosh. Back when I lived in Colorado, so this is like maybe a year ago, I have a dog named Rocket. I don't regret naming her that, but she lived up to the name. And so I bike her sometimes. She's high energy. She needs to get it out. And we're biking. And on my bike ride, someone yells out of the car like, you shouldn't be doing that. It's dangerous for your dog. And I was like, what the? First of all, like, why spend your energy talking to other people? And second of all, why did that bother me so much? Y'all, it ate me up for days. And those are the wounds that we have in people pleasing. I know my dog. I know the pace that I'm going with my dog. I know that my dog is significantly happier getting a bike ride than not. So why am I concerned about what somebody said to me? And the second thing that happens in being canceled, or any kind of feedback around you, is if it's a wound match. Something that has come up for me many times before is how blunt I am. Now, I have a little bit of beef with this because this is cultural. I don't know if you know, but I grew up in Germany. I have dual citizenship there. I'm the middle child. Both my sisters were born in Germany. And right now, my little sister lives in New Hampshire. My older sister lives in Germany. And my mom spends half the year between New Hampshire and Germany. And in Germany, they tell me, like, you are way too emotional. And you're, like, way, way too touchy-feely. And in the US, I'm told, like, I'm too blunt, I'm too structured, even my hand movement right now, right? I'm a German girl, like, through and through. Efficiency? Oof, don't flirt with me. I mean, I'm getting hot thinking about it, you know? And so it is true. I am blunt. Definitely by US standards. Definitely within the yoga coaching world, right? I'm a very direct person. And that used to eat at me until I started to love deeply that part of myself. Until I started to see the benefits of what was happening. And also the shadow work of sitting in, why am I blunt? And what are the deeper motives of being blunt if it's not just a natural part of myself? And sometimes I was blunt because I didn't have enough time. I was running a really large business, managing 20 plus people, and, in small businesses, right, you wear all the hats. And so sometimes I was more blunt because I felt I didn't have enough time. Maybe that's true. Maybe I could work on softening skills, which I spent years doing. Thankfully, the ability to soften my edges and my bluntness also really helped me in my coaching business. Like, actually, all of the feedback that I got on myself really helped me evolve into the person that I am today. When we focus more on external validation, we lose the ability to be guided. Because our guidance, our inner wisdom comes from inside of us. And so if we're always focused on what other people are saying or what we need to do to please other people, we're going to abandon ourselves. I want you to really feel the energy behind the words self-abandon. Because that's what we do when we are too afraid to look at ways that we might contribute. When we are too afraid or we're worried about being wrong for something that we've done. Because the thing is, people will come and go. What's that saying, like a reason, a season, or a lifetime? I've lost so many people that I thought would be in my life forever. And it's heartbreaking. It takes a rebel heart to move through that, to take accountability, and to let people go. A lot of when we rise into our authenticity, when we start listening to our inner guidance, relationships naturally fall away as we evolve and we shift. And identities, if you're lucky, they'll come and go too. Who you are, what you know yourself to be. Yeah, all of those things can fall away if you choose to keep evolving and do that inner work. But the power in being self-guided, the power in being able to hear the intuitive whispers inside of you, that'll never go away if you attune to it. And that's when I realized when we are fully awakened, when we have the ability to really listen to ourselves, we cannot be defeated because we are always guided by something higher, whether that be God or the universe or your higher self, whatever it is. And so I'm excited for the meditation. It's a little bit more workshop-y, because the gift that I'd like to give to you through this is to stop being afraid of yourself, to stop making some parts of you bad, to focus more on if you like other people rather than if they like you, to focus more on what's happening inside than outside. So if this episode landed, if you've been through a similar situation where you felt gutted and you have done the inner work or you have yet to do the inner work, because damn, that shit takes courage, DM me. I would love to chat about it. It's like, I'm so passionate about making a community of women who know that it takes effort to do the inner work. Like shit, y'all, it was so uncomfortable to go through this period. Truly like the lowest my confidence had ever been in my whole life. But because of this podcast was born. My ability to come out and say, I'm psychic. Like, that still feels nerve-wracking saying. It's so against our societal norm. And still, it doesn't bother me anymore. Because I'm more attuned to what's happening within. And so I'd love to have conversations about how this landed. If you know another woman who has been through something like this, or who is dabbling in the courage to have the radical self-responsibility around owning all that she is and the power that comes with loving all parts of herself, send it to her. Like, let's be rebel-hearted women and rise together. I'll see you in the meditation, and I'm really excited to hear how it goes for you.